welcome to another Mad Hatter tutorial. Today we're going over how to record the game of World of Warcraft and create a video with that. The programs you'll need are Fraps, Adobe Preimere, and World of Warcraft Model Viewer. For this demonstration I created a short intro and video. So when you set up Fraps, you got to make sure that you check Hide Overlay. That'll keep the frames per second from showing the top corner. You also want to go to Movies, and if you don't want the mouse to show, click Hide Mouse Cursor. Make sure it's at 29.97 frames per second. And that's pretty much all you have to do with Fraps. Now in WoW Model Viewer, you can go ahead and open a character that you have saved, character file that you have saved, or you can load one from the armory. I have one saved from the armory already for my character. And once you load the character, you'll notice I use a blue background for a blue screen or a green screen, depending on which way you want to go. And then you can select the action button and choose what action you want your character to make. And make sure you have Fraps running and recording, and you can sit there and do different stances or different effects like emoting, roaring, casting spells, whatever. Now you open up Adobe Preimere, create a new project. Here we're going with 16.9 progressive with 1080p high definition, 29.97 frames per second. In the newer versions of Adobe Premiere, you do have some YouTube settings, but just make sure that you're having 29.97 frames per second and the aspect ratio is what you want, and it's high definition. And now go ahead and right click on your project tab and click Import and select the file you recently recorded with Model Viewer. Now click and drag that file to your Sequence tab, and you'll see it pops up in your sequence screen. At this point, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put a key frame on top of it. The concept of this is pretty simple. It's the same thing as a blue screen. It's going to take anything that's that color blue, and it's going to remove it. So now we're only left with our actual character, and we can put the background images and everything else that we want in without seeing this big blue screen. After applying the blue screen key to the file, which will remove the blue background, I go ahead to the Effect Control tab and I change the scale and size of my character to be the size I wanted in the video. Now all I have to do is find the sequence, the part of the video that I actually want to use for my video. And there's a tool that's the razor blade tool. What you're going to do is you're going to find the part of the sequence you want. The parts that you don't want, use the razor blade tool and put a slice or a cut in that video. And then you can just click and delete the part that you don't want. And then arrange it however you want it arranged. You can have your character walking, then talking, or sitting, or doing any combination of movements. But you have to splice them together just right so it has a fluid feel to it. Now once you have your different pieces spliced and set aside or set next to each other, you want to have the transition between each video selection pretty fluid. So you want to go to Video Transitions and select the Cross Dissolve. And that's kind of like a blur. It'll dissolve from one look to the next look, and it should make a nice smooth liquid transition. Using cross dissolve right in the beginning and right at the end of any video clip is a great way to fade in and fade out. You can do dissolve to black, but I prefer cross dissolve because you have a black background to start with. It'll just dissolve from black to whatever you have. Now I want to go ahead and import a background. So once again, I want to right click on the project tab, click import, select a background that I'm going to use. And this is a background file that you can put in any time you want. You can take it in or out or fade it, but you can use them multiple times. But I'll go ahead and import my background file, and then I put it to my sequence tab, and I'm going to put it behind everything, which is higher up. The lower on your sequence tab, the more precedence that your file takes. So if you have the background on the first tab, it covers everything. You want to put it on the last tab or farther down from your video files. That way, it is a background image, and anything that you want to be seen in the foreground is automatically going to be put on top of it. Now I also added a video effect to this background file called crop, and that lets me cut away a part from the bottom, top, left, or right. And I crop from the bottom a little bit, and then I go to my effects control tab, and I made the size of the background file big enough to cover the entire back of the screen. So I cover the whole back of the screen, then I crop from the bottom up to make it look like the character was actually standing on top of a blackness with trees in the background. And here again, I used a video transition of cross dissolve. This at the end helps it just kind of fade out. But once you drag and drop the dissolve effect on top of the image you want to edit, you can actually edit that dissolve effect itself. You can stretch it out, make it longer or shorter, so you have a longer dissolve or a shorter dissolve. If you have two image files or two video files side by side actually touching each other, and you put a cross dissolve in the center of those two, it'll dissolve between the one and the other, but they have to be touching. Now I put another effect on the background file called a fast blur. And what this does is it lets you blur out the background, and you can actually transition that itself. You can transition a blur to be crisp later on or more focused. And we'll go over that in a later video. To insert text, you just want to go to Title, New Title, and Default Still. That'll bring up a text window, and you can click there and you can add the text, give it a 3D effect if you need, and change the font, anything you need to do from there to add text. Once you have that file created, you can close out the window and drag the file over and drop it into your Sequence tab to add it to your video. Here I created a text with the character's name and inserted it behind the character but in front of the background, and did a fade in and out on the text. Now that the intro is finished, I'm going to go ahead and import the video files that I've already recorded in Warcraft using Fraps, and I'm going to insert those into my sequence. I'm going to create a new title right at the end, just to say the end, but sometimes you can put credits or some closing statement or whatever you want. When you're all finished with the video, it's time to render it. So you want to go to File and Export and choose Media. At that point, you want to choose what type of format you want to put into. I suggest for YouTube, always use H.264 format, and you can tweak it at that point. Make sure that your frame rate is 29.97, your aspect ratios is 16 to 9, and at that point the other settings really are up to you. You can choose if you want to do target bitrate higher or lower, and maximum bitrate higher and lower. I suggest doing a target bitrate of at least 10 and maximum at 30. Thanks for watching this tutorial on how to create a video for Warcraft.